There was no music. No applause. Just a silence so sharp it could cut glass. Not the cozy kind of silence, the kind you slip into with a sigh and a blanket. No. This silence prowled. It buzzed under the skin. The kind of silence that clung to the rafters and held its breath. The kind of silence you hear right before thunder splits the sky. The set of The View glowed under studio lights, all chrome and color and television smiles. But none of that reached Sylvester Stallone. Center left seat. Shoulders square. Jacket black and beaten like it had survived more than movies. The glint of a dog tag peeked from beneath the collar, catching the light just enough to whisper, "This matters." He didn't move. He didn't need to. The host leaned in, her grin a shade too sharp, the joke already cocked and ready. "You still wear that little piece around your neck?" she asked, voice sticky sweet with a twist of blade. "I thought Rambo hung that up, what? Decades ago?" The audience chuckled. Stallone didn't. Not at first. Then, he smiled. But not with his mouth. It was smaller. Meaner. Like a scar remembering how it was made. His hand moved slowly, deliberately, pulling the dog tag from his collar. He held it up, just enough to catch the light. Just enough to silence the last scattered laugh. "This piece of metal," he said, voice low and graveled like tires over gravel, "belonged to my brother." A pause. Not for effect, because he needed a breath. And the room, suddenly, did too. "He died there. That place most Americans can't even pronounce. He wore this when he prayed." His eyes flicked up, quiet, steady. His last words. And then, the silence broke open. Not with noise. With weight. Whoopi blinked. One co-host cleared her throat. Another shifted her cue card, eyes darting to the producer. A camera operator adjusted his shot and missed the frame entirely. Even the lights above seemed too bright, too exposed. Too much. Stallone didn't rush. He rolled the tag between thick fingers, his body unmoved, his face unreadable. You could hear someone in the front row swallow, loud as thunder in that breathless room. He looked off camera, voice even. "Cut to commercial." The director raised a hand. "Not yet." Not yet. The tension snapped tight. Not from confrontation, but from sheer gravity. The kind of gravity that makes you sit straighter. Listen harder. Stallone nodded faintly. "I don't wear this for nostalgia," he said. "I wear it because I like it. Because there's no such thing as forgetting things. Even when they hurt." No one moved. A single cough from somewhere in the shadows. A laugh stifled in the audience. Even that felt like a sin. Whoopi chuckled, too high, too fast. "Whoa. Well, that got heavy real quick," she said, trying to lift the mood like a balloon filled with rocks. But the air didn't budge. It had changed. Something had settled. Because Stallone hadn't come to charm the audience. He hadn't come to spar, flirt, promote, or reminisce. He'd come carrying something heavier than opinion. He came to say something. 2 days earlier, the email had landed with a ding. Subject line: The View invites Mr. Stallone for a conversation on American values and legacy. He read it once. Then again. From the passenger seat, city lights flickering on the windshield. "It didn't seem like an ambush," he muttered. Charles, his publicist of 20 years, squinted at the screen like it was radioactive. "They're not inviting you," he said. "They're baiting a bear." Behind him, a faded Rocky II poster curled at the corners. "They want the old Stallone," Charles added. "The punchline. The relic." Sly didn't argue. He didn't even blink. He just turned his head toward the city and watched it breathe. Then, slowly, a crooked smile twisted across his lips. "Maybe I'll show 'em something they didn't expect." From a battered canvas duffel on the floor, he pulled out a small case, old, worn, soft from years of touch. He unzipped it. 2 boxing gloves. Faded red. Leather cracked like old hands. "These," he said, cradling one, "are the gloves I wore the week Daniel died." Charles froze. People think pain makes you fragile, Stallone said, eyes on the glove. They're wrong. It makes you honest. He placed one glove back in the case, left the other out, rested his hand on it, like it was something sacred. I won't be fighting in that studio, he said, eyes hard. But I won't walk in unarmed either. By morning, the internet was buzzing. Why is Stallone doing The View? Damage control? Washed up. They'll eat him alive. He's too old school. Irrelevant. He didn't read a word. The black car rolled toward the studio. One glove packed. Dog tag tucked beneath his shirt. He stared out the window at a city that had once screamed his name. Then forgotten it. Then whispered it again, like a secret they weren't sure they believed. He didn't practice sound bites. He didn't rehearse stories. Because this wasn't about winning. This was about truth. And truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just shows up. Bruised. Breathless. Unbreakable. The stage was perfect. Too perfect. Shiny table. Smiling faces. A set designed to smooth out wrinkles in reality. Soft chairs for sharp questions. He sat unmoving. Posture carved from concrete. The dog tag glinted, just once. A man from the audience, a veteran, stood to speak. But Stallone didn't scan the crowd. He didn't need to. His eyes were fixed. Forward. Focused. Whoopi leaned in, flashing that signature grin, the one built for this. The rhythm of 1,000 interviews in her bones. Sylvester, she said, playful and poised. You've played soldiers, boxers, gangsters, even a jungle fighter with a headband. Laughter rippled through the crowd. But Stallone? He didn't flinch. Tell me this, Whoopi said, flashing teeth and timing. When exactly did you decide to become a priest with a dog tag? Laughter burst louder this time. A little too loud. The kind that masked discomfort with punchlines. But Stallone didn't blink. Didn't flinch. He let the silence do the work first, let it thicken and press. And then, voice slow as thunder rolling in. Did I? That was it. 3 syllables that froze the air. A few audience members shifted. Some crossed their arms. The rhythm had snapped, the fun had turned sideways. The tension? It wasn't cute anymore. Whoopi cocked her head. A brow raised, amused, but not quite in control now. So, let me get this straight, she said, leaning back like a boxer resetting. The same guy who blew up tanks with a bow and arrows is here to give us a sermon on memory? Another laugh. But this one didn't land. It ricocheted. Stallone shifted, just barely. Not defensive. Rooted. Grounded like a mountain that had seen too many winters. I've played a lot of things, he said, voice low and textured like worn leather. You don't need a script to know a character. He paused, letting the weight settle. But pain. His voice dropped further. Pain doesn't care how hard you hit. That laugh they were hoping for? It choked mid-throat. He looked straight ahead, into them, not at them. You all know the line, he said. It's not about how hard you hit. Some audience members nodded, murmuring the next part under their breath, nostalgic, expectant. He finished it, but not like a movie quote, like a confession. It's about how hard you can get hit, and keep moving forward. Now he leaned in. Eyes sharp, voice clear. That line wasn't in the trailer because it sounded cool. I wrote it. I lived it. When my brother died. When the applause stopped. When the world moved on and I had to keep standing up anyway. The room held its breath. I'm not here to preach, he said. I'm here because sometimes pain needs a voice that doesn't shake. No laughs. No claps. Just stillness. Real heavy, alive. A phone hit the floor in the back row. Loud in the quiet. A woman in the second row covered her mouth. Something had pierced deeper than anyone expected. The room wasn't a studio anymore. It was something else. A cathedral of human ache, lit too brightly to hide in. Whoopi cleared her throat, trying to ret-ether the energy. Well, that got real fast, she said lightly, nervously. Stallone nodded once, eyes steady. Pain doesn't wait. The round was over. But there was no applause. No gotcha moment. No knockout punch. Just aftermath. He wasn't here to box. He was here to strip the gloves off the ring itself. He stood. No grand gesture. Just moved quietly from the stage to the audience. And then, he did something rare. Rare for a star. Rare for a man like him. He walked toward a child in the third row, knees knocking beneath nervous jeans. But Stallone didn't tower. He knelt slightly. Met him there. Not like a celebrity. Like someone who remembered. Then you've already started, he said. Soft. Sure. The kid's lips parted. No words. Just trembling hands. And then, others on the row reached out. Not for comfort. For connection. Stallone turned back, voice now deep as a drumbeat. I didn't come here to change minds, he said. I came because someone out there needs to hear a voice that sounds like survival. The child sat down slowly. A boy barely 12. Hands still shaking. The room exhaled, but no one spoke. Not yet. Not even Whoopi. She watched, cards in her hands suddenly feeling like paper cutouts of relevance. This wasn't the show she planned. This wasn't a show at all. Stallone walked back to his seat. The glove still rested there. But it no longer looked like a symbol of pain. It looked like an anchor. And somewhere between silence and spotlight, something like faith stirred, not faith in doctrine or creed, but in presence. In endurance. It wasn't loud. It wasn't clean. But it was real. The silence stayed, like fog refusing to lift. Not uncomfortable. Just unedited. The kind of silence TV usually cuts for time. Whoopi broke it first, barely. She looked up. Voice tight now. Unsure. A little raw. You walked in here with gloves and dog tags and sad stories, and suddenly, everything just stopped. Her tone hovered somewhere between challenge and confusion. Stallone looked at her, not with pity. Not with bravado. Just stillness. I didn't bring stories, he said, soft as a bruise. I brought what was real. She leaned in again. Pushing now. Come on. You've made millions playing broken men. Won Oscars for punching bags. And now we're supposed to believe you're, what? Just some guy who knows pain. She shook her head. Voice rising. It seems like you're hanging on to it. The room winced. A ripple of discomfort moved across the seats. It was too sharp. Too exposed. And too late to take back. Stallone didn't respond immediately. He let the words hang there, like dust after a building comes down. And then, quietly. Grief doesn't disappear when the cameras stop rolling. A woman in the back nodded. Someone near the front whispered. That's true. I'm not clinging to pain, he said. I'm carrying it. Because pretending it didn't shape me would be the lie. And then, Whoopi faltered. She opened her mouth. Closed it. The card in her hand trembled just a little. This wasn't her moment anymore. This was supposed to be light. She muttered, almost to herself. Stallone didn't miss it. He leaned forward, voice calm but unshakable. Light doesn't mean false, he said. And truth doesn't always shine. Sometimes, it bleeds through the cracks. The audience didn't move. The lights hummed. Fabric shifted as people leaned forward, not to be entertained. To witness. One of the co-hosts, silent until now, spoke, barely more than a whisper. He's not wrong. Whoopi glanced sideways. Then back at Stallone. Her smile was gone. Stallone leaned in again, not attacking. Reaching. I didn't come to fight, he repeated. But I didn't come to stay silent either. And this time, nobody mistook him for Rambo. Nobody mistook the gloves for props. Nobody mistook pain for a performance. For the first time in that brightly lit theater of make-believe, the host looked like the guest. And the guest? He looked like the mirror none of them wanted, but maybe needed, to see. No one moved. No one dared to. Stallone's words hadn't just been spoken. They stayed. They echoed, not with sound, but with weight. With the kind of gravity that pulls something loose inside your chest and doesn't give it back. Whoopi sat still, her usual rhythm shattered. Her note cards, once armor, lay limp in her lap like fallen leaves. Something in her posture had wilted. Her eyes weren't challenging anymore. They were searching. Then, a sound. Barely audible. Beep. A flicker. The screen behind them, meant for promo reels and cheerful sponsor logos, sputtered, glitched, then lit up with something else. A message. Not planned. Not approved. Accidentally triggered backstage by a producer's misclick. But it was too late now. The words appeared, large and white against a black background. Stark. Raw. Unforgiving. I'm a Marine who lost my best friend in Afghanistan. The gasp wasn't just heard, it was felt. Hundreds of hearts seized at once. One inhale. One heartbeat, shared by everyone in the room. Time stretched. And then another line faded in. Just as quiet. Just as devastating. I was going to end things tonight. No one breathed. Stallone didn't look at the audience. Didn't look at the camera. He turned to the screen, slowly. And stopped. He didn't act. He didn't pose. He just stood there, face still, but something shifting beneath it. Not emotion. Recognition. A weight moved through him. His jaw clenched, not out of anger, but purpose. His eyes didn't shine. They held. Whoopi turned to look too. Her mouth parted. But no words came out. That legendary sarcasm, so sharp, so fast, had vanished. And what remained sounded human. Wounded. Awake. Stallone stepped forward, not for effect, not for the show. For him. For the man on the other side of that accidental confession. The one who had sent that message like a flare into the dark. He didn't blink. Didn't raise his voice. But somehow, it filled the room. If you're watching this, Stallone said softly, I don't know your name. I don't know your story. A pause. His gaze dropped to the gloves on the table. Still. Waiting. But I know what it's like to feel like the pain owns the room. The audience didn't move. The cameras froze in place. Even the air felt like it had paused. You don't have to believe in me, Stallone continued. But believe in the fact that you're still alive. And that's not nothing. That's something. He stepped forward again, one step, but it closed the space between two worlds. Don't leave this world just yet, he said. Not until you fight back. At least once. And then, silence. But not the heavy kind. Not the silence of awkwardness or weight. This one was holy. Whoopi blinked hard. Her hand found her glass of water, but didn't lift it. She just held it, like a lifeline. Like an anchor in a moment too deep for language. This wasn't television anymore. This was a cathedral built on pain and survival. A battlefield of the soul. A sanctuary made from a glitch in programming and a man who didn't come to perform. In the control room, no one reached for the cut to commercial button. The screen faded slowly to black. No music. No branding. Just a breathless room, and the echo of something real. Stallone didn't sit back down. He remained standing. One hand resting gently on the glove. The other brushing the dog tag that had never left his chest, not since his brother didn't come home. There were no cheers. No claps. No applause. And that silence? It said everything. Then, quietly, one woman stood. Front row. Arms folded. As if holding something inside her that might break if touched. Then another. A man, third row, same posture. Same stillness. No music. No cue. No coordinated standing ovation. Just people, rising. Not for a man. But for the moment. The ripple moved slow. Gentle. Like wind through wheat. No one clapped, not because they weren't moved, but because they were. And clapping would have ruined it. Stallone stood still, scanning them, one row after another. Not proud. Not moved. Just present. This wasn't for him. It was for them. For the Marine. For the child. For the ones who had been told too often to get over it. What they saw on that stage wasn't a movie star. It wasn't Rambo. It wasn't Rocky. It was someone who bled the same color. Truth without spin. Pain without polish. Strength that didn't shout. Whoopi hadn't moved. She sat hunched now, cards still limp, her usual fire dimmed, but something else flickering behind her eyes. Regret. Reflection. Recognition. And then she spoke, barely. "You didn't come here to win anything, did you?" Stallone looked at her. Calm. Still. A gentle shake of his head. "No," he said. He came because someone, somewhere, needed to know they weren't crazy for still hurting. Whoopi stood. Not to pivot the segment. Not to rescue the show. She just stood. Because in a moment like this, staying seated felt like a betrayal. The silence didn't feel awkward anymore. It felt sacred. And Stallone? He didn't reclaim the spotlight. He didn't deliver one final line. He just sat. Not because it was over, but because it had landed. The gloves remained on the table. But they weren't symbols of pain now. They were proof. Proof that sometimes wounds don't heal by being ignored. They heal by being seen. And for the first time in years, the view didn't sell. There was no banter. No battle. No bite. Just a single, stunning hour of raw humanity. And the kind of silence that stays with you long after the screen goes dark. Stallone's voice still lingered in the studio air, thick, heavy, like smoke after a detonation. It wasn't just what he said. It was how he said it. Quiet. Unapologetic. Solid as stone. Whoopi sat frozen, her signature poise shattered like glass. The cue cards trembled slightly in her lap, useless now, like umbrellas in a hurricane. Then, beep. Blink. The massive screen behind them, usually reserved for sponsor logos or fluffy segment intros, lit up with a sharp, jarring overlay. Wrong feed. Someone backstage fumbled. Hit the wrong button. Too late now. Words scrolled across the screen, simple, brutal, real. "I'm a Marine who lost a best friend in Afghanistan." The audience inhaled all at once. One breath. One collective heartbeat. The silence was volcanic, about to erupt but holding. Stallone didn't flinch. He didn't speak. He turned toward the screen with the slow, deliberate focus of a man who's seen real war, and recognized it now, in a line of text. The studio was still. No camera movement. No nervous laughter. Not even a cough. Then his voice, low, like gravel under boots, cut through. "I was going to end things tonight." The sentence crashed into the air like a dropped weight. You could feel it, something changed. Stallone didn't look at the audience. He looked through the lens. Past the walls. Past the studio. To him. Somewhere. Out there. "I don't know your name," he said, steady. "I don't know what you've seen, what you've had to carry." He glanced down. 2 boxing gloves sat on the table beside him, symbols of every fight he'd survived. His fingers hovered above them, not touching. "But I do know what it's like when the pain walks into the room first, louder than you. Stronger than you." A boom mic operator wiped a tear from her cheek and didn't even realize she'd done it. "You have to believe in me," he said, his voice tightening. "But more than that, believe in the fact that you're still alive. And that means something." He stepped forward, not toward the camera, but as if trying to close the impossible distance between himself and a man on the edge. "Don't check out yet. Not tonight. Not before you fight back, just once." The silence that followed didn't fall. It rose. Like something sacred. Something holy. Whoopi blinked rapidly. Her hand went for her water, then just held the glass. No sip. Just contact. Like it was keeping her tethered. The view no longer felt like a show. It felt like a confessional. A war memorial. A lifeline. Backstage, the producer moved to cut the feed. And stopped. No music. No applause. Just that one message hanging in the air like mist. A man who hadn't come to perform. He came to speak truth. When the screen finally faded to black, there was no sound. Only the echo of what had been said. Stallone didn't sit. He remained standing, one hand resting gently on the gloves. The other drifting instinctively to the dog tag beneath his shirt. The one he never took off. The one that used to belong to his brother. No one moved. No one dared move. And then, slowly, a ripple began. A woman in the front row stood up. Her arms crossed tight, like she was holding something broken together. Then a man in the third row. Same gesture. Same silence. Then another. And another. No cue. No camera pan. No orchestrated emotion. Just standing. A wave of quiet reverence spread across the room, row by row. Not applause. Not a standing ovation. That would have cheapened it. They stood because sitting down would have felt disrespectful. They stood because something real had happened. Stallone scanned the room, his eyes softer now. But unreadable. Like he was seeing them for what they were. Not an audience. But witnesses. Whoopi finally spoke, but her voice cracked midway. She stopped herself. Tried again. Failed. Then, almost as if she had to, she stood. Not for control. Not for hosting duties. But for him. For them. You didn't come here to win anything, did you? She asked, eyes still misted. Stallone shook his head slowly. No. You came because someone out there might still be listening. And they were. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was reverent. Eventually, Stallone returned to his seat. Not because the moment had passed, but because it had landed. The gloves were still on the table. But they didn't scream battle anymore. They whispered survival. And for once, the view didn't sell a thing. No clever segues. No fiery debates. No closing slogans. Just a room full of people. Remembering what it felt like. To hear the truth. Without makeup. Without polish. Without permission.